And Poetic is the name that I use when I'm performing my poetry, and it's pronounced Poetic, but it's spelled in Haitian Creole, and that's just how I embrace my culture of my ancestors and how I honor them by spelling the word poetic that I feel embodies everything that I do in the way that my grandmother would spell it. So the first poem that I'll be reading for you all is a poem called My Angry Poem, which has been something that resonates deeply with me with everything that's been going on in this racial pandemic that we're dealing with right now. And I do say racial because I feel like the pandemic was one thing, but the killing of Black people just kind of surmounted that for me in a way that I feel is very captured by this poem. So yeah, I'm just gonna start a little timer. All right, so here we go. My Angry Poem. I don't remember the last time my mom said she was happy with a smile. You see, I ask her this question on the daily. I ask her this hoping that maybe she'll respond with joy and save me, but she always has a straight face as she says, "Baby, I'm happy." Her voice sounds choked, pressured, pleading, "Let's not go there." Guns of capitalism pointed at her head as she imagines working the cash registers till she's dead. She says she's happy. But Mama, how great can happiness be if you no longer wish to see the sun? How great can happiness be if you don't long for the music of simpler times? Curtains drawn, you crumble, and I only have old jewelry and pictures to remember you by, but you're still alive. So forgive me if I spy a lie when you look me in the eyes, voice broken and dry, to tell me that you're happy. My mother is a dentist. Notice how I did not use past tense. My mother is a dentist who's lost her smile. My mother is a dentist who only lives for her child. My mother is a dentist who works at Walmart because someone thought it would be smart, but to protect access to professions based on where you were born, who you are, and who branded you. But they thought she'd use voodoo on her patients, or better yet, more properly and more skillfully treat her patients. Well, I'll be darned. White God forbid. So they send her back to elementary school to count her ones and twos like she's a kid. There are many reasons why I find it difficult to befriend white people. And the white people I have befriended, I count dearly on one hand. I've been told for so long not to be angry that I slowly began choking on smiles pulled straight out of the code switching handbook and gifted to the countless I'm not racist in my life. My anger boiled into hatred, hatred peeled off like a scab to reveal inflamement, inflamement scarred into wrath, wrath hardened into a wild kind of fury. So I guess I am a docile nigger after all, and ain't I? I guess I do know how to follow instructions because as you can see, I'm not angry. I've passed that. I'll share with you a thought that perpetually travels through my mind. If the revolution happened the way it did, and we still claimed we have dared to be free, let us thus be ourselves and for ourselves. Had you somehow been blessed with the ounce of humanity required to leave us the fuck alone after the fact, what cities would we have built? What technologies would we have developed and owned if you had never lusted for our diamonds, our mountains, our music? What Wakanda would we have woven from the fibers of our motherland? I call this grieving over something stolen. And you wonder why I don't want to be friends, why I don't want to hold hands, why I don't want to hang out. Because after clinking champagne with you, I go home to ask my mother if she's happy and she lies to me. This anger is a double-edged sword that could pierce me as deeply as it could pierce you, but I won't let it go. I want to hold on to it, you see. Squeeze with blood dripping through my fingers, because after you stripped me of the mountains and meadows of my mother, all I have is this mad to remind me that they were mine in the first place. You left me with nothing but a bouquet of shit to be mad about. All I want to do is cocoon myself within safer spaces, wrap myself in the familiarity of people who just get it. Those loving havens adorned with laughter that's too loud, and a kind of black magic that brings me to tears, is where I find the respite necessary to see the sorrow in my anger. It's a healing that's hundreds of years overdue. It's a healing I promise to delve into, though not at all for your peace of mind, no. Definitely for my own, though. For those who never could, and for those who only dreamed of the possibility. That's my angry poem. And the last poem I have for you is called Black Magic and Blue Melanin. And to me, it's the flip side of anger and everything I want for Black people and for myself as a Black woman. So here goes. Black Magic and Blue Melanin. Love how rock covers my skin. Black magic, blue melanin. Deep like the stars in the sky. Mama, sage me to heaven. Let my energy rise up. Water the rhythm in our essence. Cheers to the sound of our coalescence. Ain't I blessed to be the color the sun calls home? Ain't I blessed to be the lover of sun and moon? Blood in the words that I write. Black magic red in the fire. Roll like the thunder we ride. Baby, beat me to heaven, so to battle I rise. I wouldn't trade this for anything. In fact, I put this on everything. How to be tired of Coco O'Shea if they always seem to know what to say. Black is the girl that braids my hair when Sally Mae claims my day. Oiled fingers on scalp tracing the pain away. Hot sauce on baby cheeks and smoky embrace. A ritual we keep between mama's knees. I breathe in the stories she weaves, singing the kind of songs that just come and don't leave. Our laughter, I tell you, our laughter is the sweetest song God has ever written, but she created our joy just to make herself smile. We took your nigga and turned him into a king, put a crown on his head and made him dance. Found tempo in the smallest grain of sand. Let our hair grow. In the meantime, live up to the sun. Curls like clouds, walk like wild, but like roses have thorns we remember. I think they truly believed they could crush us. They really thought like berries they could squeeze out our juice and sip the drink of gods. But have you seen us? The way you stare, I think you have seen the way our glare goes on for days, goes back in time to black magic and blue melanin. Our bodies know the secrets of a world your fathers never knew to remove their shoes for, to feel the swing in her soil. But enough about you. We have the whole world for that. I think we're truly something special. Just what their dreams were really made of. Rest our heads here, you and me, babe. There's no one like us around. I really like what you've done to me. I can't really explain it. Thank you. Now I'll pass it to the lovely poet, Kama la Mackerel.
Everyone, I'm just gonna assume I'm here right now and everybody can see me and everybody can hear me. Thank you so much, Poetic, for just this wonderful, wonderful, beautiful rendition. I'm so excited to be able to share some poetry with all of you today and to share space with the other poets. So I'm going to be reading 3 pieces today. As some of you may know, I do have an upcoming poetry collection that's coming out with Metonymy Press in September called Zomfam. My last piece is going to be a piece from that collection, because I guess I should read a piece from that collection. But I wanted to share some new poetry, some newer poetry that I just wrote over the past little while during the quarantine, actually. And yeah, because I miss open mics. I miss being able to share poetry with audiences. So thank you everyone for being here. And I'm going to share some new material with you. So the first piece is called Full Moon Ceremony. On the night when the moon is full-figured, I spread magic on black velvet by the kitchen window. A silver bowl brims lush waterfalls. I pray, I cleanse, I invoke, I chant gratitude. I call upon femme deities with chapped lips, saffron skin, volcanic armor. I wrap my body in murmured waves, fleshy burn shields my red heart against the evil eye. Strong-armed woman, I run barefoot through forests where the night never ends, bury shame and silence. I howl at the moon, feral, warm blood flowing through gorges, neck taut, mouth hungry, hair matted, searching for silver. I bathe my skin in beams of light, soft and sweet coconut cream dripping from the night skies, until my eyes turn white, until the moon, like the full moon, prophecies curl in my hair, unmask fears. At dawn, the skies turn to water, tides of ginger sap sweep morning stars, hibiscus pollen. I stretch, my skin's glow in the aftermath, licking ripples of salt of hardened muscles. A mauve hortensia blooms in my heartbone. A rose coral reef grows along the ridges of my spine. I remember the taste of clay. I hold myself whole again. Thank you. The next piece that I'm going to be sharing with you is a piece that I actually got commissioned to write in French. And you might not know this about me because I also write in French and I write in Creole, but I have this, it's quite interesting because in my practice, I tend to always have a first draft that's written in English first. My first draft is always in English, and then I recreate, retranslate, to rework the work in French. So this is a piece that's supposed to be in French, and then I thought, what am I going to do with this English piece? And then there's all of you. So I thought I would share this piece with you. Child of color, you who holds affliction in your heart, who carries the rage of breaking oceans in your chest, you with pebbles in your throat, sediment scattered, mortar sealed along the folds of your vocal cords. You with thundering curtains of the night under your eyelids, whose lips quiver in fear each time you try to speak the truth. Child of color, you, yes, you, yes, you, yes, you. This is wisdom passed down from a grandmama to her granddaughter, who herself became a grandmama and passed the wisdom down to her granddaughter like the rivers that flowed sweet sap, water, pollen in the lens of our ancestors all the way to the sea. This is law passed down from a grandmama to her granddaughter, who herself became a grandmama and passed this law down to her granddaughter like the tight pain along the length of your arms when your bony fingers massage saffron and mustard oil into green mangoes. This is a prayer passed down from kin to kin through lineages of survivance and magic, the pulse of resilience beating its drum in the heart of your ribcage, sinuous waves of blood lapping against bones under your skin, keeping you, your grandmama, alive and her grandmama before her. This is a story passed down that I now pass to you, so you may learn by it, so you may live by it, so you may pass it on to your own grandchildren someday when you have them, for yes, you will have them. They will come searching for you, searching for love, searching for history, searching for warm honeyed milk, searching for their foremothers. There is surviving and there is thriving. These are different things, and this you need to know. Surviving is living out of hunger, the constant search for food, for love, for acceptance, for sleep, for scraps of wool to cover your body at night. Surviving is the rumbling hammer in your gut when your body and your spirit fall apart and trudge along muddy tracks miles apart. Surviving is when you and you are no longer in the same room, under the same skin, but somehow you keep breathing. Surviving will not make you whole. Surviving might afford you quick relief, give you the illusion of a full belly for 1 hour, for one night, for one quick fuck, for just another high, but these never last. And soon you'll be hungry again. But thriving is different. Oh child, thriving is something else. Thriving is like watching the sun rise over the horizon, breaking through the night's murmur, bringing truth and light across the shadowed lens. Thriving is like a flower blooming, gentle petals unfurling their vivid heart out to the open skies. Thriving is like winged pollen, exhaling good fortune in the wind, spreading songs of resistance and healing from our ancestors, the gospel of maternal soil that refuses to disappear. Thriving is that feeling when your heart expands and your spirit soars and you know in the safety of your bones you can walk in your light, you can stand in your truth, you can live, you can love your life's purpose. There is surviving and there is thriving. These are different things, and this you need to know. And this I also needed to know, which is why it is wisdom that my grandmama passed on to me, to you. Don't get me wrong. Survival skills are important. They allow you to do just that, to survive. Your survival skills will make you smash your fist against your father's jaw, steal your mother's lipstick and her cash, pack your bag, and run from this abusive home that you loved and hated so much. Your survival skills will make you run away from this country that wanted you dead. They'll turn you into a skillful liar, a talented thief, an expert manipulator. They will teach you to fight, to flight, to freeze, because that's the only way to protect your heart, to survive. But surviving is not thriving. At a point of time, you need to hold each of your survival skills to the light, every single one of them like ferns rising from the earth looking into the sun. Hold them up, measure them, weigh them. Watch the thickness of their veins, the depth of their roots. Pay attention to the stories they tell about who you were, who you are, and who you want to become. Do this exercise with diligence, truthfulness, and honesty. And if you find out that a skill is a fence around your heart, if you find out that a skill is a wall between you and others, if you find out that a skill mounts a barrier between you and you, then that skill does not serve you anymore. So thank it, honor it, grieve it, and let it go. And dream up new ways to grieve your life's journey, because this life is grief. Your transformation and growth require grieving. And dream up new ways to celebrate your life's journey, because this life is also joy, deep, thick, expansive, abundant joy. Ground yourself in reimagined values that honor the child who sings in you. Learn to listen when your body speaks, because your body knows, your body speaks. Fortify the sacred languages of your flesh. Excavate every single word that lays buried under your skin. Speak your truth, speak your truth, speak your truth, speak your truth. Develop daily rituals that connect you to the miracle of your heartbeat, the divine purpose in each of your breath. Manifest the stories that you dream of, visions of your soul. Live and actualize the full extent of your life's purpose. Develop, nurture, and refine your life's work with the diligence of your ancestors who relentlessly work the lands of destiny, seeding your legacy into the soil of the future. And uncover new vocabularies for love, for you, for others, for love, for you. Thank you. I will now end with my last piece, which is actually from Zumfam, my poetry collection that's upcoming from Metonymy Press. That's going to be out in all bookstores starting from September 10th onwards, and that you can already pre-order on Metonymy Press's website. This is called Existence as Gender Survivance. When you grow up a queer femme child on a plantation island, there is a story scripted for your body. In this story, age 5, your body knows how to kick a ball. Age 9, your body knows not to want or need a hug. Age 12, your body knows how to mix concrete. Age 14, your body knows how to curse a woman if there isn't enough sugar in his tea. Age 15, your body puffs cigarettes with his friends at the bus station after school. Grand-Marie. Age 17, your body drinks arak under the jackfruit tree at family gatherings. Age 20, your body becomes a man who acts like a boy who acts like a man. In this story, your body forges an existence that dismisses pain, except for the nights when your body douses his trunk with arak lava burning through his core, as your body rolls and rages, shaking the foundations of the house your body tried so hard to build, breaking bones, bruising skin over the sound of your body's own screaming voice, until your body pisses himself, cries to sleep like the little boy who acts like a man that he is. When you grow up a queer femme child on a plantation island, you quickly learn the urgency of rehearsing existence as gender survivance. You unwrite the story scripted for your body. You learn to make yourself small enough, discreet enough, polite enough, so you get to be the timid child, the helpful child, the studious child, the good child. Good because you're quiet. Good because you never speak. Good because you've learned to erase yourself, to disappear. You pocket small change, currencies of acceptance, drops of love that want you to quell the femme in you, and you slur. Oui, moins de bons enfants. Oui, moi va faire mon muffin disparaître. You sculpt a soft masculinity, you dilute a brewing femininity, you smuggle desires into a clandestine body, smother prosody under your skin. You walk fine lines, embroidered borders and boundaries, etched interstices, archipelagos and dwellings hemmed into coastlines of being, longing, and belonging. You trace an atlas of illusion. You carve spaces for your queerness to survive. You carve spaces so you can stay alive. You seek refuge in the silken pleats of your mother's saris, in the lyrical fulfillment of pictorial make-believe, in the wistful smell of crayons and wood shavings. You wrap yourself in domesticity, a blanket of safety. You make yourself small, molding your figure to fit in nooks between the fridge and the kitchen door, between the sink and the gas stove, spaces where you learn to slaughter a chicken, to gut a fish, to grind garlic, ginger, saffron, dried chilies, and curry leaves on a polished slab of black stone. It is in the spaces you learn to witness femme intimacies, storytelling, gossip, sisterhood, support, softness, pointed and sharp like a cooking blade. It is in the spaces you learn the value of honoring. It is in the spaces you learn the virtue of worship. It is in the spaces you learn that resilience is not the silent bruise under your skin, but the hallowed space lodged inside your breastbone. When you grow up, a queer femme child on a plantation island, where boys are supposed to act like men who act like boys who act like men, you conceal your shame like sunset pollen nested under the folds of rose petals. You dress like a pilgrim, footsteps on an ocean of burning coal to prophesy re-belonging. You lay the foundations for new tongues, vocabularies, spaces, bodies of existence as gender survivance. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for being here. I will now invite our next poet today, who is Shanice Nicole. So please, Shanice.
hands, as you can see. Thank you to everyone who's put so much labor into the organizing. So much work goes into space creation, whether it is virtually online or offline out in the world. And so I'm so grateful that you've joined us, and to everyone behind the scenes, as well as Kama and Powetik, who have blessed us already with their poetry and their writing. And I'm always so honored. It's really weird to not be able to see each other and to like feel each other in that way, but I was snapping my fingers, and I hope all of you were as well. So I'm gonna share a bunch of poetry and then also close with the reading of my children's book, Dear Black Girls. That's also being published by Metonymy Press, and I'm so grateful to be working with Kesna Dolls, who is the incredible illustrator, and who has just completely brought this story to life, and I can't wait for everyone to see it and buy copies for the people in their life. So I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I'm going to share micro poems in between a few long poems. And so it's gonna break it up a little bit in a way that I haven't before. So we'll see how that goes. And this first piece is always so fitting, but today, or this week especially, it feels like it fits like a glove. And so this is called The Truth Hurts. Oh, Canada, our home and native land. Well, on native land, but history books tell us otherwise, tell us lies, colonized from page to page and coast to coast, while this country stays doing the most. And by doing the most, I mean doing what's gross like slavery, then hiding slavery in the RCMP and all its brutality, and what this country did to the Chinese and also the Japanese. And I could go on and on and on with other ethnicities and all the atrocities, including trying to sabotage indigenous sovereignty by killing land and water and people, and killing land and water and people, and killing land and water and people. A murderous nation that refuses to admit its guilt, let alone pay for the crime. And you know what? Apologies are not valuable currency, because apologies don't heal the land or the water or the people, and apologies without actions are just words like reconciliation, one of your favorites. Speaking of which, how about you reconcile this, Canada? How about you get out of your own country and then beg for permission to enter at the borders you created? And while you're waiting, trying to find a way in, I hope that indigenous nations are waiting, armed and ready to tell you to go back to where you come from, Canada. To give back all you took, Canada. To find a mirror and take a good deep look, Canada. Even if you don't like what you see. Even if you don't like what you read, and I know you're used to rewriting the history books, positioning yourself as the peacemakers and the freedom givers and the do-gooders, and always on the right side of history. But that pedestal you've put yourself on must be clouding your view, because from down here it's clear, and it's definitely not right, nor is it on the right side. So tell the truth, Canada. In hopes that it will set you free, but between you and me, I don't foresee how a country with a top-tier marketing strategy convincing its own people and those around the globe that what we know best is justice and peace could ever tell the truth. But luckily, we come from the truth tellers, who taught us to be truth seekers, seeking out what the history books tried to erase, gone without a trace, or so they thought. Because it's a new day. And your time has come, Canada. So tell the truth or get out of our way while we tell it for you, Canada. Because if the dirty secrets of this country have taught us anything, it's that the only thing more powerful than a lie is the truth. Thank you. Okay. I don't know what's next. Actually, that's not true. I do know. Oh, yes. a lot of these are entitled. I don't know how, maybe we can talk about this later. How do you title a poem? To ask me to be neutral is to ask me to forget, to ignore, to lie, to surrender. And none of those are options for me or my body. Okay, another untitled poem. Following in Kat's footsteps. This one's a little bit angry too. Sorry, poetic. White people always say that we are being divisive, as if they are not the original dividers of land and countries and borders and families and progress and hope and safety and power and harmony. As if they are not the very definition of division, colonizing everything in their vision. Y'all made that decision, made white supremacy the mission. Do you not see the work and the results of your ancestry? Or do you expect me to divide my body into pieces just to make you feel whole? Just to make you feel human? I was never good at math, but know that this is a calculation that I will not consider making. And know that there is no amount of mathematics in the world that I could ever do that would even come close to the sum, to the difference, to the product, to the quotient of what you and your people have done in the name of division. My partner and I have been spending a lot of time with our plants. I actually rescued a bunch of my plants from my office after we were told not to, but it was so worth it because now they're all here and they're alive. And so this is another untitled one. I thought this plant had died, and then all of these flowers started to bloom. Give it water, give it light, give it time, give it life. Thank you. Sorry, could we go to the other slide for a second? Backwards. Thanks. Sorry, I forgot to issue a content warning for this in advance. I apologize for that. But the next poem is going to talk about sexual violence. And so I just want to give people a second to do what you have to do to take care of yourself in this moment. So that means that might look like leaving the room or putting on some music or grabbing a blanket or leaving your body, whatever it is. I'll just like wait a couple seconds for you to do that. Okay, so this one has a title, and this one is called Maya's Voice. When Maya Angelou was 8, she stopped speaking. And not because there were no words to speak, but because she believed that her words were not meant to be spoken. So she turned off her voice, a conscious choice after not being given one. Because at 8, Maya Angelou was raped. And she used her voice to voice her truth, and that man went to jail for a day. Turns out he was murdered a few days after by men who believed that he had to pay for his crime beyond doing 24 hours of time inside. But this is not a poem about how the criminal and justice system is broken or, as they say, working the way it's supposed to. This is a poem about voice. This is a poem about how nobody on this planet is voiceless, but how so many on this planet have their voices taken away. This is a poem about how Black children have to learn how to fight to survive, even before learning how to spell the word. This is a poem about Black women carrying burdens too big for our shoulders and still being told to stand up straight, even when the weight breaks our backs and shatters our spines. No more, no more, no more. We deserve more than to just survive, so enough with the pain, enough with the violence, and whether you sit in silence or shout from the tops of every mountain and roof, know that whatever you choose is your choice. Know that whatever you choose is your right. Thank you. Another plant poem. With my hands deep in soil, I feel more alive. This is not coincidence. It is connection. This is a new poem called No More Crumbs. We need to stop asking for crumbs when we taught them how to bake. I said we need to stop asking for crumbs when we taught them how to bake. Let us remember, because the function, the very serious function of racism is distraction. We learned this from one of the wisest, greatest, fiercest, Miss Toni Morrison. May she rest in peace and power. May her wisdom shower down over our heads. May we lift them up and look to the sky and hear our ancestors cry. Our freedom is ours for the taking. I said our freedom is ours for the taking. Because the time for asking is over. And the time for freedom is now. Am I ready? Are you ready? Are we ready? Thank you. Finally, pretty wild that this is a book that I am writing, that is an actual thing in the world, and that there is like the most beautiful images that I've ever seen that are accompanying these words, and I can't wait for people to just have it in their hands, and for myself to have it in my hands. I really want to hold it. And it's hardcover. Shout out to Metonymy Press, because that was something I really, really wanted, and they made it happen. So this is Dear Black Girls. Dear Black girls, yes, you, the ones who are starting something new and wondering how you'll do. Yes, you, the ones who have big feelings in your minds and bodies. Yes, you, the ones who are looking in the mirror and wondering if you like what you see. Yes, you, the ones who are chasing one of your many magical dreams. Yes, you, Black girls. Yes, you. Dear Black girls, all around the world, this one is for you, for us. Dear Black girls, I love the way your Black skin wraps itself around you, as if it never wants to let go, as if your color is the richest thing it has ever known. Dear Black girls, I love the way the kinks in your curls twirl, bouncing and free afros worn like crowns with hair defying gravity, protected in locks and braids and under wigs and weaves, because whatever you choose is up to you, queens. And know that this goes for the rest of your body, and anyone who tells you different doesn't have to live, breathe, exist, be in it. So please let it be known that your body is your own and only yours, dear Black girls. Dear Black girls, I love the way your forehead takes up space on your face. Strong, big, and wide like the oceans many of our ancestors survived, hard, protecting the wonder that is your mind. Dear Black girls, I love the way your lips and mouths are full, as if they're already packed with the stories you will share and the lessons you will learn. Full as if they're already ready for the battles you'll face as you travel through time and space. ready to fight and laugh and kiss and love and scream and everything else in between, you will have to do because you are a Black girl in this world. Dear Black girls, I love the way your body curves like your mama's and hers. Ancestry running through your veins, reminding you each and every day of who and what you come from. The where isn't always clear because the where isn't always known. Our histories aren't always shown. So many stories have been sewn, pieced together, and fabricated, and then used as a means of educating little Black girls that you grow up in this world thinking you are not loved, thinking you are not everything. But dear Black girls, all around the world, despite all you may feel, think, hear, or see, know that you are honored, protected, and loved by Black girls like me. Thank you so much. So much love to all of you. I can't see you or hear you, but I feel you. Oh my goodness. I think we're
Yes, we can do this now.
so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, I think we really want questions. We have like a lot of time left, so.
Yeah. We have a question from.
Yeah.
Oh God, is poetry an act of resistance and survival?
What do y'all think?
Who wants to go?
Go for it, Kama. I can feel it.
Yeah, you're like, ooh.
I'm just like, yeah, after I like read an entire poem about surviving and thriving. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I think poetry is both an act of resistance and survival and thriving and connecting and community building, right? Like I think particularly, I think a lot of, I think both of you will relate to this of, us as writers and poets who have come to poetry through the spoken word. At least that's my case. I'm assuming that's the case for both from what I know. Yeah. And I think there's something, it's like, there's something so relevant about it, right? Like the ways in which we come to poetry, not through, like the creative writing program or like, like we come to, for me, at least I came to poetry, first of all, as a way of finding my voice, like literally finding my voice, right? Like, and in that sense, it is an act of resistance when you've been silenced your entire life, when you've been told your stories is not valid, and then in all those ways. And for me, poetry was the space where I could, those were for grassroots open mics, that too, but like where I could speak for the first time and that my voice could be valued. And for me, those narratives, of course, like their survival, because they're a way for us to actually articulate, a more full sense of our own selves in the world, but also every single narrative that about us, right? Like about our bodies, about our histories, that doesn't exist. Like every single time we get to speak, we get to use the I, right? Like that's a deep act of resistance, because there's an order out there, there's an aesthetic order out there that says those stories can exist and those stories cannot exist. And when we actually take the mic, right? Like, and I think that's very proper to like different marginalized communities, as in I mostly know like the spoken word, like the Black spoken word scenes or the queer spoken word scenes in that sense. But absolutely, they're an act of resistance and survival. But I think more than that, for me, poetry as the spoken word was an act of connecting, an act of relating to people, and being witnessed and held and witnessing others and holding others. So it's resistance, survival, but it's also so much more than that.
That's so, I resonate with that so deeply, because I think you, Kama, witnessed like my entry into the world of poetry, especially in Montreal, through poetry night. And I was shy, I was closed off, and then having like the audience and their feedback. Oh my God, I miss audiences. Like, oh my gosh, I miss people clapping. I miss seeing people's facial expressions. But like you said, what that did for me was like it validated for me that my voice could be heard, because it had not been heard and acknowledged or validated for so long, whether it be within my family or outside my family. I didn't know what that felt like until I started speaking my writing. And so I definitely feel like it's an act of resistance, because as I'm like growing and like studying a master's in creative arts therapy, I'm learning that there's healing, so much healing that happens within creative processes. You have no idea, like the act of creativity is healing in itself. And like art is not just a skill that you have to become good at and win a Grammy for. Art is something that humans have been doing since the beginning of a time, just to keep ourselves sane and to keep ourselves alive. So there's so much healing in the creative process. And for me, art, like you were saying about Maya Angelou, Shanice, like I felt first came to Maya Angelou because of that excerpt where she talks about where she didn't speak for like the beginning of her childhood. And even though I did speak during the beginning of my childhood, I felt like I hadn't really begun speaking as me and me together in alignment until I started speaking poetry. And so that was my resistance, and that was my inner revolution and coming to myself in a sense.
Yeah, everything that you both said. I don't know if I have much to add. But yeah, I love that your like kind of entry into poetry story also has comma in it, because that's the same for me as well. My very first performance was at Gender Blender, and I cried like a baby on the stage. I like literally turned around and faced the wall so I could like ugly cry. And it's wild, you know, it's wild how time is such a trip. And yeah, but poetry and writing in many ways has been like one of the most beautiful blessings in my life. And it's interesting, I always like loved you know, to write, but I never really thought of myself as a creative person. And so for me, discovering poetry allowed me to actually like discover this entire creative part of myself that you know, in many ways always existed, but I hadn't like tapped into. And I think so often about people who are not either given the space or the affirmation or the resources to kind of tap into that power. And so I think you said this, Poetik, just, you know, what I want for Black people is for us to just tap into our individual and collective power. And yeah, and thinking about like, you know, for us, we speak about poetry being that for us, but like really thinking about like, what is your medium? What is your tool?
Anything.
And everyone has that. And so I think finding that is so important, especially at a moment like this where so much feels out of our control. There's something so powerful about being able to pick up, okay, I don't pick up a pen, open up Google Docs and type a poem into Google Docs, you know? Yeah, and also thinking about, for me, like there's been a piece around how poetry has allowed me to say things that I can't always, or that I haven't always felt like I could say. And so and that's because art, right? Art is so powerful. Art allows us to open up in a way that we don't always allow ourselves to. And so we can share those messages through our art and connect to an audience that might not necessarily be listening. And I think that is like, you know, what it's all about.
That's beautiful. We have another question from in the Zoom chat. P. Andy asks, what have your writing processes been like and changed over time? Also, thank you for sharing your pieces. You're welcome.
Do you want to go for it, Kat?
Oh, okay. How have my it's okay. How have my writing processes changed over time? I think when I first got the open mic bug and I started doing a lot more open mics, my poetry writing process was definitely like geared towards creating reactions for the audience. Not that like it was just performative or empty, but it was just like I knew that the effective way of getting my words across and making them land was to write in a way so that like my rhythm and my flow would land for an audience and create kind of like a collective reaction. That's what it was like for me in the beginning, at least, because I knew I was going to write to speak. Writing was always about, okay, I'm writing this, but it's going to be spoken. I'm not just going to keep this. You know, I was in the beginning, I was never writing to like have my words read. It was always to have my words heard. But now I'm moving more towards a space where I want my words to be read, but I don't think I'll ever be the kind of writer or artist or poet where my words are just like, I sing in my poems a lot. There are intonations that, like when I read a poem, I'm like, oh my God, that's what it was supposed to sound like. The whole time I was reading it and I never spoke it. That's why it never made sense to me. So yeah, I definitely, at my core, I read for my words to be spoken. And I'm trying to go more towards writing for people to read it, but it still feels weird to me. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's me.
Yeah, that's so relatable. It's making me think about like every time I submit a poem to like a competition or whatever, and I'm just like, I wish I could submit an audio recording because you're going to read this and you're not going to get it because there's so much that you're not getting. And there's something, of course, in that about like how the written word is prioritized or celebrated in our society. And I think about like, you know, our communities where oral storytelling and the way that we like share knowledge is not always in the written form, and how so much of that is like either lost or not valued. But that's so relatable. And I also feel the same where for me, I was writing to perform. And so that's probably why I also cried at the first time, because I had to like practice. And so it was really intense. And so I understand, you know, or I can imagine why, you know, people write, you know, for years and then perform. But I was just kind of like, okay, let's do this all at once. And that was, I started writing poetry in the summer of 2015. And so it hasn't been like a very long time, but it feels like a lifetime in the same regard. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, everything you said. I love that. Like, it's interesting, yeah, because we each of us have those trajectories, right? Like in terms of where we came to the word and the spoken word and the written word. Yeah, I mean, it's my process, of course, has been changing. And has changed. I would say I started spoken word in 2013, since you were sharing the Shanice. Like the summer, I came back from a trip back home that summer, and I just had a lot of anger in me, and that's when I wrote my first spoken word. And I presented it on Gender Blender, because where else would I present it? And that was the beginnings of Gender Blender. I guess I wanted to create a stage where I could read my own poetry. And yeah, I mean, I think the part that I'm not going to talk so much about how my writing has evolved, but I think I do want to share a little bit about how my artistic voice has evolved. I mean, I'm also a multidisciplinary artist, right? Like, so I'm always thinking for that question of like, it was interesting for me even to put my poetry manuscript together, because like this was written for the stage. Zomfam was a show and conceived as a show, and I wasn't too sure whether it would, you know, I'm so grateful to Metonymy for taking a chance on it, because I was like, what, like, who's going to be interested? There are only 8 poems in it. Like, you don't ever read a poetry collection with just 8 poems in it, right? Like, cause they almost short stories, they like, and I think that was an interesting challenge for me working on the manuscript, thinking about, for me, I was really thinking about it. I want the words on the page to perform, you know, like I played with it a lot around like placement, how, you know, like how I can build rhythm or place through placement of the words, through white spaces. So I've been thinking a lot in terms of putting the manuscript together for me, as I want those words to also be a performance in themselves. Like it's like almost the words are the body and the page is the stage, and how then does the word perform on the page. So that's how I envisioned it. And yeah, I mean, I'm super curious to see once this book is out into the world, what is it like, what the response to it is going to be in that sense. Yeah, and the other thing that I wanted to say is around my writing evolving and changing with time. I think my relationship to writing or to creation in general has changed, but the reason why it has is also, I feel there's a lot of self-work that and refining of finding out what is my story, you know, like what is it that I want to be saying that's actually truthfully my story. And there's that, yeah, how do I, and I felt like for me, my writing evolved and changed as I was more honestly and more truthfully accessing who I am, you know, like in terms of just even being honest with myself about who I am. And that progress very much actually, for me, with time, it was a long process, but it did make me more confident in my own creative process. So there's a bit, I'm just going to read this long question/comment.
Yeah.
So it says, thank you for one of the most uplifting experiences in the last 3 months of quarantine. Thank you for being present. Emil, who wrote that comment. Gratefulness for all your work and bravery. Can you talk a bit about what it means to you to be brave, to put yourself out there when it feels so scary? I've been doing a lot of writing and ancestrally driven creation, but the vulnerability to share, even in my own circles, as a trans femme of color is so daunting. Where does it come from? Can you share what your process is around cultivating courage?
Wow.
Who wants to start?
Are you ready, Kat?
No, you go first. See, no courage here. No, it's over to you.
I mean, courage is also saying I'm not ready yet. So, Emil, I love you so much. Yeah, it's such a. I would say it's again, multiple truths. Like it's an ongoing it's a lifelong ongoing process, and I think we, you know, in our society we love a binary. And so I think we set it up in the sense of like, you're either courageous or you're not, you know? And I don't think that's true. And I also don't think it's helpful because it doesn't account for the amount of space that's in between that. And what it means to, yeah, like reimagine what courage looks like in your life or in your context. I think that's also really important. And yeah, I would also say, like specifically to this kind of comment or question, I think there's also something about like the stage or like the big stage being like the place, you know. And I just think like there are lots of different stages, and it doesn't necessarily need to be in front of like a massive audience, and like you can also be your own audience. And so, Emil, I would say, if you haven't already done this, like just practice like performing the poetry to yourself. In the mirror is even harder to like look at yourself while you're like truth telling. But I think just remembering that like you are also an audience, and you have my number, and so call me and we can do a private show.
Yeah, I love this so much. I mean, I think, yeah, exactly. I love, Shanice, how you frame this as like understanding courage also through the framework of the binary, right? Like it means something, and then because I don't think exactly, I think you're so right on this. I mean, if for me there's something, you know, like reading this question and reading this comment, and I'm like, oh wow, so you have been writing as a trans femme of color. You've been writing, and your writing has been based in ancestral work. I mean, that in itself is showing up. You know, the fact that you've been writing, that is showing up for yourself. You know, that is courage. And you're not only showing up for yourself, you're showing up for the entire lineage, right? Like for the entire ancestry and the lineage that's yet to come. You know, so just the fact that you are doing that you actually, you know, you might not be sharing your words, but you are finding your words, right? Like you're searching for the magic that's within you. And I mean, if that isn't courage, you know, if that isn't courage, like what is, you know? And I think you should, yeah, give yourself credit for that. You know, people write in different ways. So of course, we all have different practices. Like for me, in my practice, I always say, because I get that question a lot, do you think about your audience when you're writing or when you're performing? And I always say, well, yeah, when I'm creating, I always have an audience, right? Like, but sometimes the audience is not the audience. Sometimes, a lot of times, the audience is my mother, you know, and a lot of times, as you've heard from my pieces today, the audience is the child that I was. I write a lot for the child that I was. I've realized this, you know, or for the past me or for the future me, right? Like it doesn't have to be like an audience as in like 150 people sitting in a room, which we can't even do anymore now. 20 people sitting outdoors. But all this to say, you know, like it maybe of course we all have different processes, but also thinking about, like, because for me, even if I'm not sharing a piece for an audience, I'm like, I am sharing it to my younger self, right? Like I am sharing it to my mother. Not actually, I don't read it out to my mother, but I think about my mother as I'm composing it and sharing it, right? Like, so there are multiple ways of doing this. I've never tried the mirror thing. I've never read to myself in the mirror. And then, yeah, the question of, because it doesn't have to be public also, like I think sharing can happen. It doesn't have to be the spoken word that's shared. It could be, hey, I've written this poem, I would like you to read it. Somebody whom you trust, somebody who's gonna know how to hold your words, right? Like, so, and yeah, like you can also just share, like I know I have things that I only share with my immediate circle, with my little cocoon of people and love, because that's, yeah, I don't want to share it with the rest of the world. But all this to say, I think you're brilliant, I think you're magical, I think you're already showing up for yourself, and I think you're so very courageous.
I don't know the person who asked this question, but I definitely resonate with everything that Kama just said. And Shanice, like, me personally, when it comes to courage and being brave, I've had a lot of difficulty. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a very long and slow journey of like peeling away at fear and like uncovering layers on layers, like anxiety. It's a thing. So, but I feel like a Spanish teacher that I had one time in university gave me some really great advice. I don't think she knows how much I reference this, but it really helped me, because when we were doing our oral presentations or whatever, she would see that we would get really nervous. And so she just told us that, like, forget about sometimes your fear and your anxiety and the things that are stopping you from sharing your work, however it is that you want to share your work, are really, really rooted in yourself. And you're forgetting that what it is that you would like to share is more important than how scared you are. And I feel like everyone can take that with a grain of salt, but I personally feel that everything that I write has been for me first. It has been to heal myself first. I write it and I perform it to myself, like in my head. And it's always been to heal something within myself. And now I'm like, look at this beautiful thing that I've just created. Look at this gorgeous piece of work that I've just created. If it could help me so much, imagine who else it could help. Like, how dare I, you know what I mean? Keep this treasure to myself if I have the capacity to overcome a certain amount of anxiety and fear to share it. And I mean, like, I don't think that's for everyone. Some people are just like, you know what, like Shanice and Kama were saying, sometimes your art is just for you, and it's just for within your circle of friends, and you don't have to share it in these big grandiose ways that society says that we should as artists. But I've come to understand that, at least for me, a lot of things that have helped me reach a place of more courage is just realizing that this has helped me so much, that it's so, like, this body of work, this piece of art is now so important and so like so full of light that, like, that in itself is more important than me keeping it to myself. It no longer belongs to me, which is how I see it. But I'm still not, I don't see myself as brave. No, I'm just, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm scared. So that's it. We have another question. Oh, which open mic events in Montreal are your favorite? RIP for now? Question mark.
I don't know if I can answer for open mics, but I will just, yes, RIP to Gender Blender, which was so beautiful. Friday nights. RIP to so many spaces across the city, because that's another webinar. But I would say, I just want to shout out Sisters in Motion, because I think to this day, any Sisters in Motion event has been the most beautiful space that I've ever been in to write and create. So, yeah.
I agree. I started out at Poetry Night. I never had the privilege to experience Gender Blender, but I definitely would have loved to experience Gender Blender, RIP. But hopefully there will be more events like that soon. My favorites were Poetry Night, and then I started organizing with a group of friends another poetry night series called MTL Poetry Jam. Who knows, we might start again soon in a virtual Zoom-like context, maybe. And then there's another collective called Collective 4891. They have a number, their name is a number. I don't know if I'm getting that right, but yeah, they're also really great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say the same thing. Also, just to give context for people who might be in the audience and do not know, Gender Blender was a queer open mic that ran monthly every last Friday of the month between 2013 to 2018. And it was an open mic that I founded and was hosting and running, that over the years has seen more than 400 different artists go through. And it was really, the idea was to create like a space for queer and trans people that's safe and supportive. So that's why we keep talking back about it. And then after 2018, it was all volunteer work, which was fantastic, but I did it for 5 years, and then I was like, I needed to move on to other things, and I was too tired. So unfortunately, the event stopped. But I know by then there was Poetry Night that I've been to. I don't know more than that, interestingly enough. I know more of like Francophone performance. There's a lot of poetry open mic in the Francophone. Depending on where it is and how it is, it can be pretty white and pretty dude filled spaces. But yeah, in Francophone spaces. But now, yeah, I kind of hope it's funny, because I had a fantasy that maybe I would restart Gender Blender this summer, but as a seasonal thing that would happen every season. And the plan, like, there was an entire plan for it, and then the pandemic happened. So I'm like, I don't know what happens about open mics until we have this situation a bit more under control. Yeah. So there's also a question, so I'll read the next question that says, do you find it easier or harder to write poetry in these intense times? How do you focus yourself when everything is so overwhelming? Is it okay if I go first for this question? Yeah, I mean, I don't actually. I haven't. I mean, now it's been a couple of weeks now that I've gotten back in the groove, but since between mid-March and early June, I did nothing. I didn't create. I didn't, there were things that I had to do, like when the publishers sent me the edits to the book, I had to do it. That I pushed through and did. Have I created anything? Even the 2 new pieces that I read, I wrote over the past couple of weeks. Like there's something that shifted over the past couple of weeks for me, and I think it's more than anything, it has to do with how I process grief and pain in general. I mean, I wrote another piece that was published on Medium, just about like what it means to be a Black trans femme in a moment like this. But that's what I talk about in the piece, like the writing of the piece. I hadn't written a nonfiction piece, a public-facing, vulnerable piece like this in years, and I realized that this writing, like this moment, was about me. I haven't created in the pandemic at all. I think the socio-political situation around Black lives, around trans lives at the moment is just impacting me so heavily. So I'm writing again, but as a way to process my feelings. That's why I'm writing. But during the pandemic, I didn't do anything that was creative or quote unquote productive. I just didn't.
I think that's totally valid. Like, I feel like at the beginning of this pandemic, there were a lot of like Instagram posts or Facebook posts going around about how we shouldn't feel pressure to be productive and things like that. But I didn't get the memo. Like in the beginning of the pandemic, I think I just I was grieving in the opposite way. I just, something about this pandemic made me realize how much time I had spent working the 9-to-5 beat, and I just had felt like a zombie inside for so long. And like, yes, doing artist projects on the side here and there, but like it was just killing me. And I felt like I couldn't escape it. And then when the pandemic happened, I realized that I had more time to myself and more time to delve into myself. But I was also dealing with feelings of fear, because I realized that, okay, what if this pandemic, sorry to get deep and dark here, but I'm a Sagittarius moon, sorry. So what if this got worse? What if this had been worse than it was, and the world had just like reached a point of darkness where like just life as we knew it was just not possible for years and years and years on end. And I was just at a place where I was like, I was not happy with the decisions that I was making in my life. If the world were to just be like, oh, stop freedom here, you can't do anything that you want anymore, I wasn't happy with that. I didn't like what that looked like. And so I started writing furiously in my room, and I came up with my chapbook, Rice Grains and Golden Frames, in that time. But then I feel like I just reached a point of burnout where it was just like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. So I just allowed myself to like just not create. Not that it was easy or hard, but it was just, I'm in a space where I'm giving myself space to not, because it's okay to not. And yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, totally. I think balance is so cliche, but balance is key. And yeah, and that process of like trying to find balance is like, again, that like long-term ongoing forever work. Yeah, similar to you, Kama, like it's only recently that I'm starting to write again. I feel like I always say like I don't really have a writing process. I just like open up the Google Docs when the poem comes, and then I like write it there, and then I leave it. And that's usually, it used to be like on, I'd be walking somewhere or on the bus, so always like in transit. And I don't know, on some level I have like this dream of like developing a writing practice, and a consistent one. But for now, that's just not how I do it, and that's also okay. Like, I think there's something about, like, you know, challenging that idea of like, this is how you write, this is a poem, because as you can see, like, it looks like all different things, and it's all beautiful. Yeah, but I haven't really been writing that much. I actually, at the beginning of quarantine, I was actually using cooking as like a coping mechanism, and so I like launched this coping by cooking series. And as you can see, I haven't been posting a lot because I'm not cooking, because I'm not coping, or at least I'm not coping in that way. But I will restart it, because the sun is here, and so I'm. But the last month has been like unreal, and the grief has been so deep, and I've been joking with friends that, like, this is the first week that I haven't cried yet this week, so that's like my new bar. And it's Thursday, so maybe I spoke too soon, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, and I think there's something that's so important about being compassionate and gentle with ourselves, especially now. And I am especially thinking about the necessity to, like, protect our spirits and to protect everything that is sacred, because, like, we are under attack in every sense. And I think there's something really important about protecting ourselves on, like, at each of those levels. And I think the spiritual level, whatever that looks like to you, is something that's so incredibly important. And so that's been like a really interesting process for me over this past month, like feeling really deeply connected to ancestors and connecting to spirituality in a way that I never have in my life before. So I've just been kind of open to that and receiving, feeling a lot of gratitude, and feeling like, alongside the deep grief is like some really deep clarity. And so I'm just in this moment of clearing and of figuring out what it is that I want to do next. And I don't know exactly, but I do know that, like, I want Black people to be centered, and Black people are my center. And so that's the thing that I know for sure. We have a few more questions. I cheated and pulled it out, so I'll start with that one. But someone was asking what we're reading right now, if there's anything exciting, and I just want to share what I'm reading. Can you see this? Pleasure Activism by Asian Marie Brown.
I need to read it.
So good.
So good.
It's also I've realized I've gotten way too accustomed to, like, reading Facebook statuses and, like, think pieces and blog posts, and so it's hard to, like, read a book. I don't know if I should say that out loud, but
relate. You're not alone. I relate.
I know. So it's been nice to just, like, go slowly and, like, you know, a little pieces at a time. But this is just so incredible, and I've really been thinking about, like, what it means to center pleasure, to center joy, specifically Black pleasure and Black joy, in a time and in a world that is so deeply anti-Black. And so every time we choose pleasure and we choose joy and we center that, we are resisting. And that's so beautiful. And so I think that's important for everyone, actually. Like, of course, I'm speaking to Black people, like, that's like my center, my audience, but I actually think we need everybody tapping into pleasure and joy, because we need more of that in our collective and in our world. So please invite it into your life in whatever way. Yeah, what are you guys reading?
Oh my God, I love this question so much. I mean, I'm somebody who I spent a lot of my quarantine reading. That's one thing I did. And I couldn't, for whatever reason, I had a block on poetry. And I was only fiction. I think fiction became my escape. So I was reading a lot of fiction. Also, side note, I mean, I'm a lit kid, okay? I'm like a total nerd. I review the books that every month or so, like, I will review the books that I read on my Instagram stories. Like, if you're on Instagram, it's at Kamala Mackerel. I have, like, how do you call this? I save them. Like, if you go on my profile, you see book reviews, and you can click on them, and there are, like, a bunch of reviews. And most of what I read is contemporary Canadian literature, specifically people of color, queer, and or queer trans people of color literature. So what I did right now, I just like saw what was in front of me, like what was by my table right now. So just in terms, so I've been reading short stories since it's been a couple of weeks now. The first one is Te Amo Tunji, Shut Up You're Pretty, which just got a Trillium Award like yesterday. Published at Arsenal Press, like amazing, like disturbing, funny. I don't know, it's that fine line video. I'm just like, this is so disturbing, but also so funny. So you know what it means to be a Black immigrant, being a teenager in Scarborough, very specifically. It's very proper to Scarborough, very proper to that reality. I think it reminds me of Catherine Hernandez's novel Scarborough, of David Tryandi's brother, which also happens in Scarborough. But yeah, a wonderful collection of short stories. Shut Up You're Pretty. So I would say go for that. I also read those were Shut Up You're Pretty is by my bedside. That's why I can't like just like take it, but I'll show you what is on my table now. I also read this that was recently published at Arsenal Press, Corinne Manning, We Had No Rules. Super queer, like just like such a wonderful collection of queer stories, like, you know, like pretty white queer in that sense, but like I find it hilarious. I'm just like every single situation, every single character, I'm just like, yeah, that was one of my white queer friends at the point of time. Yeah. Like just like great, like it was a good reading. And I just started, speaking of short stories, also Zadie Smith, Grand Union. Like I just started it. It's really good. It's I mean, you can see what's amazing about this collection specifically is just you really see the like just how mature Zadie, like, you know, they're not just stories. It's like every story is packed with like either criticism, like cultural, race, social criticism, or just her wisdom, where I'm just like, you're a wise woman at this point, you know, and there's so much wisdom and nuance and like subtlety into the short stories. It's pretty great. And the last thing I will quickly, since it's in front of me, but also the only poetry collection that I read, and that was last week, is Amber Dawn's My Art Is Killing Me and Other Poems. And I mean, it's the poetry collection. Like it's just so for those of you who don't know, Amber Dawn is like a phenomenal queer writer, poet, and novelist as well, you know, who also a sex worker activist who like really paved the way for so many generations. And what's amazing, so this book actually looks at what it means, and I think that's a question that is relevant to all of us as well, like what are the ways in which literature or Canadian literature wants to consume you and consume your trauma story, and what are the ways in which it wants to consume your trauma story. So in this poetry collection, she looks back over her first poetry collection, which is also a memoir, How Poetry Saved My Life. Like I've like just like I was so fundamentally disturbed by this collection. In like I didn't know whether I wanted to read it slowly. I finished it in 2 days. But it's, you know, it really reminded me, one of the things, the reason also why I'm bringing it up, because in this poem that I shared at a bit of time, I say, speak your truth, speak your truth, speak your truth. And as I was reading this book, I realized, oh, Amber Dawn was the first poet, queer poet, that I had read in How Poetry Saved My Life, who had said, speak your truth. And then it comes back in this collection in terms of what does it mean to speak your truth in Canadian literature. I highly, highly, highly recommend this collection. So this is such a great question. I could talk for hours about what I'm reading and why I'm reading it. Thank you for that question.
Oh, I love it. I was taking notes, taking notes. But I'm like Shanice. I've been finding it very hard to read because of everything happening on Instagram. I feel like I'm combating this feeling of like I need, as a Black person, to stay up to date and know what's going on in the social medias, and I'm fighting against it and hoping to win in that battle. But the book that I did finish during this quarantine is Sula by Toni Morrison. And I'm very much inspired by American writers and poets because I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. So I feel like a lot of American writers and poets that I read, especially Black women, they have this way of reminding me of home, like the South. And Sula, I don't know what I learned from Sula, but it was so beautiful. And it's just beautiful. Like if this were a meal, I would want to eat it. Like I want to eat this book. I want to eat the words. Oh, they're so good. And another book I've been reading is The Book of Night Women by Marlon James. I don't know if you see it. But the Book of Night Women by Marlon James, very triggering book. Read this slowly. Take your time. Have tissues. Very, very heavy. Lots of sexual violence. But the thing that I've gotten from this book is the spirituality during that helped a lot of women slaves in Jamaica specifically survive the slave trade, and how that spirituality was very a key role in helping them escape. So there were a lot of things that I didn't know about Jamaican spirituality that I learned from this book. So it is a beautiful read, and it's written completely in patois, like completely. This book is thick. You know what I mean? I think there's so much courage in, as an author, in going to a publishing company and be like, you're not going to understand this, but publish it, huh? You gotta do it. So yeah, that's what I've been reading.
Yes, exactly. Okay, this is a perfect segue. Someone, Charlotte, is saying, thank you so much for your beautiful words. For those of you who write in different languages, what is your relationship with each language, and how does the experience of writing differ from one language to another?
Do you write in other languages, the two of you?
I'm muting myself
Okay,
right now.
I guess. Okay,
Go
so
ahead,
I write in English, French, and Creole, and I think it's been, of course, they're very different. They're very, very different. In that sense, I think as a process, it's interesting as well, because I said I write for performance, and specifically working on Zumfam as a performance, because so Zumfam, even in the book coming out with Metonymy Press, there's a lot of Creole that I've interweaved into it, because it is very much like everything happens in Mauritius. The entire stories in it is like on the plantation island. Like that's the reference point. And then working on it as a performance was fascinating, because then I was, it's like I'm performing the piece in English, and then there's a section in Creole, and I could notice that, when I speak Creole, my entire body language just changes. It's like the way even like the words come out of my throat, my voice is like almost something in my vocal cord changes. My body posture immediately changes. And then I found it fascinating. So for me, French and Creole are newer forms of writing. I'm still exploring with writing in French and Creole. Because when I left Mauritius, I did my undergrad in India, and I lived in India for 5 years, and then I moved to Canada, and I was in Anglophone Canada for 3 years. So 8 years of my life, where I only lived in English. And I think there's a way in which and that was the beginning of my adult life, and I studied literature in school, but also I think there was a way in which the language of anti-oppression, but also I learned to do my own emotional labor as a young adult in English. So which is why then there's a relationship that feels quote unquote easier in English in that sense, or at least gave me a vocabulary that I didn't have quite yet. So I'm still exploring that in French and in Creole. What does that? I don't necessarily call it translation. I always call it recreation, because it's then I have the freedom of just playing with the multiple languages. Actually, it's interesting because even in Zumfam, there's one line in the book. I remember I was working on the show at a point of time, and my dramaturg was like, this one line has French, Creole, and English in one line. And I didn't realize it even until my dramaturg pointed out to it. And I think one of the things that I'm learning to honor more and more, even in my English and my French writing, is to bring my Creole intonation into it. And it was great because even when we're working on the book with Ashley and Oliver, there were moments where I was figuring out, is this gonna be a Canadian English expression? Or is it going to be that awkward thing, but that actually honors the Creole? And I think that's been more of a revelation for me. And that's something I'm exploring more and more now. So, instead of having the subject, verb, object, which is how it's supposed to be in English, what if I keep my syntax as a Creole syntax, even if I use English? So I'm actually starting now to explore more, the multiple languages, working, living, and between those three languages, but also honoring more and more, the fact that English and French are two imperial languages, and Creole is one of my ancestral languages. And I think I've been trying to honor that more and more, and be proud of that, and bring that into both my French and my English writing. Yeah.
I write my poetry in French and English, mostly in English, just because I don't know, English, I have a better relationship to my writing in English. I'm still kind of angry at French. I'm angry. I'm mad at French. I'm mad at Quebec French. I'm mad at French as a universe as a school of thought. And so I feel like I've moved away from it. But like recently when I was writing my chapbook, I have 2 poems in French. And so I feel like when I write in French, I write in a more like, I don't care about you. Actually, it's like I'm writing in the language and I'm telling the language at the same time. I don't care about you, French. I'm gonna use you to get my message across, but I don't care about you. And I feel like it's the same thing goes for English, but I don't know, I have a better relationship with English. I don't know. And I'm also doing the same thing that Kama is doing. I'm trying to reharness my Creole, Haitian Creole. I don't speak it, but I do understand it perfectly, which is a weird paradox to live in because my parents chose not to teach me Creole, so I never really got to practice. But growing up, everyone would speak it around me, so like my comprehension is pristine, but it's just getting to a place where I can feel comfortable speaking. But I am writing, putting little peppers of Haitian Creole in my poems when I can, and it's an ongoing battle.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, and I think there's something important about how like these colonial languages are just so limiting, and often like the words that we want to say sometimes don't exist in the languages we have access to. So I'm thinking, okay, cool. So we're gonna wrap up now. I wanted to share like the 2 remaining questions that we didn't get to talk about, that we didn't get to answer, in case you want to kind of integrate it into each of our closings. But we did touch on it in other questions. So one was about, all of us are now kind of publishing our writing or our poetry in some form. And so there was just a question about if our approach to poetry when writing something that is meant to be read versus something that's meant to be heard or spoken aloud, how have those processes been different, kind of entering this publishing kind of space? I don't know if that was clear. I can re-ask that after. And then the other question is just about like, what are we doing to take care of ourselves right now? How are we balancing witnessing, going inward, taking action, taking care? So yeah, see how you can wrap that up and also conclude. Do you want me to ask the first one again? I'm going to just read it instead of trying to summarize. So you all came into poetry through spoken word and are publishing very soon. So how different, if different, is your approach to poetry when writing something that is meant to be read versus writing something that is meant to be, I think, spoken? So, and do these 2 processes bring you something different? So just maybe like, yeah, where are we going now in this new publishing space, and how are we taking care of ourselves?
Should I go? Okay, I guess that means I'm not muted, so I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make this quick. I think I don't know. I'm still a multidisciplinary artist, right? Like, so I'm still working on my visual art projects, my textile projects, my installation performance. So I think that hasn't changed. Like it's not like publishing is my priority or something like that. And I think more than anything, I think the question for me is more about how do I navigate literary institutions or publishing. It's a massive question. Like it could be its own webinar, but like how to navigate the publishing industry, because it is an industry like how to navigate this, particularly as a marginalized artist. And I think for me, my focus has been on not compromising on the integrity of my voice. Like I mean, to be honest, like I love my like working. Amber Dawn edited my book, and then working with Ashley and Oliver at Metonymy has been such a dream, because I didn't feel anywhere that I had to, that my writing was too weird, too decolonial, or multiple ways in which white men will tell you like this writing is not good. And that was the major focus for me. It's more about navigating the publishing, making sure that my voice is, I'm keeping the integrity of my voice as I'm navigating the publishing industry, instead of molding my voice to what the publishing industry wants. And as to the last question, I mean, I think the summer is, I've actually got I think I've been going to bed at 8 p.m. ish and getting up around like 5-ish in the morning, and then I sit in my backyard and I write between 5 a.m. to 8 a.m. And that's my life right now, and I am so in love with it. And I think, I think making sure, I never thought I would say that, but like actually going to bed really early and getting a full night's sleep has been so good for me. And that's moving forward. That's my part of going inward. That's my way of taking care of myself. That's my way of knowing that I can be present during the day for other people. It's because I'm actually allowing myself 8-9 hours of sleep, sometimes 10 hours of sleep, because I go to bed at 10 p.m. at the moment, and I still have a full day to enjoy after that. It's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely want that 8 p.m. sleep life. I want that so bad for myself. Hashtag 8 p.m. gang. I really want to be part of that. In terms of like publishing, like I said in the beginning of the pandemic, I was kind of like in a rush to create something, because I was feeling like I wasn't really in line with myself during the first few months before the pandemic hit and the lockdown started. So I feel like my relationship to publishing was like, at first was just like, fuck it, because my first chapbook, the chapbook that I'm releasing now is self-published, because I just felt in my body like I had written it and it was done, and I was just like, okay, so now I have to go and ask somebody for permission. Like everything about that didn't feel right. So at least for this project, I'm self-publishing, and that's my relationship to publishing for this project, which is fuck it. But I definitely see myself writing more, and like I said, like Kama said, like partnering with people who don't force me to compromise my voice. Like there will be the N-word in my poems because people have called me the N-word, so I will be putting the N-word in my poems and spitting it back at you because you called me that ever since the age of, so I don't want to be in a situation where I never want to be in a situation with a publisher where I feel unsafe, or where I feel like my words are not being handled with care, or no one has taken the time to actually understand why I'm writing this. So yeah, that's that question. And how am I taking care of myself? Uber Eats, and Uber Eats. Uber Eats, and just trying to go outside as much as possible, soaking up the melanin in my skin, even if I get darker, who cares? Just being in the sun and eating good food. That's how I'm taking care of myself. Thank you.
Yeah, all of the above. Seconding how incredible it has been to work with Ashley and Oliver, and it's completely new for me, and also it's new for all of us in a way, because we're publishing a children's book, so it's been a big process of learning and figuring it out, and that's incredible. And so for me, that was always so important, exactly as you both said. Like, I was not interested in compromising myself, my people, my words, my truth, and so that was critical, and I've never once felt like I've had to do that, and so that to me is so important. And even if it's not like a publisher, like I think just about like surrounding yourself with people who affirm you in every way is so important for all of us. And yeah, and it's a hard time because we're not, you know, surrounded by our people in the way that we maybe normally would be, especially now as summer is arriving. But I'm still finding ways to connect to people, especially virtually, and I'm feeling a lot of gratitude just for the time and space that I have in my life right now. It's really cool having like an open agenda, and I'm like really enjoying not getting home really late because I was like at a thing, or and you know, doing the things that we do because we want to connect with each other and we want to see each other. So it's been so amazing to think about like reclaiming rest in my life and centering my pleasure and joy and sitting in the sun every day, all day. I have like I have a tan on my legs from, you know, shorts. Like, you know, when white people get the tan on their legs, I've been sitting in the sun for days. I don't even know what it's called, but it's a specific tan, and I was like rubbing it off my legs because I thought it was like, anyways. So I've just been enjoying the sunshine, and the sun is so healing, and we come from the sun, you know, and so this is our time. And it's a particular moment right now as well in the world. And so I'm just like tapping into that energy and feeling so ready for our freedom. And so I think this is it for us tonight. We have a giveaway, which is so exciting. But thank you for joining us, for being with us. We can't see and hear you, but we can feel you, and we love you, and we can't wait until we can be together again in person and touch each other. I don't know about you, but I'm missing hugs and cuddles.